All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest to share with you today. But first, I want to tell you why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life: entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These leaders and warriors have a cause. They have unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Janine Bolon is an awesome warrior and a testament to the power of perseverance. As an impoverished teenager in rural Missouri, and we both hail from Missouri, so that's a cool thing. She launched several successful businesses before putting herself through the University of Missouri biochemistry program by working 3 jobs at once and selling all her possessions. She worked for 15 years in academic and industrial research labs before spending the next 20 years raising 4 children. Now, that's definitely job 1, right? So Janine has always loved figuring out how things work. A scientist from the beginning, she craved to dig into the mysteries of life and understand why things are the way they are. And we've got that in common as well. She has always had a side business in her life and shares with other business owners and creatives how to manage a well-lived life, or manage her business in her life, and shares with other business owners and creatives how to manage. Sorry, I messed that up, but I'll fix that. She has always had a side business in her life and shares with other business owners and creatives how to manage a well-lived life of children, family, friends, and clients while not suffering from burnout. Her 12 books, 87 online courses, 4 podcast programs, and syndicated radio show all express her desire to share her systems and routines with others. In the past 2 decades, Janine completed her MA in education, homeschooled her kids, started an entrepreneurial venture, the 8 Gates LLC, which is a firm dedicated to teaching fundamental principles of spiritual and financial independence. And she teaches math and metaphysics, in her spare time. Wow. That's a mouthful, Janine. So welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. I know things are got to be beautiful there in Colorado. How are you today?
Things are lovely here in Colorado. And thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. It's always lovely to be given an opportunity to share what you know, in the hopes that you can help iron out people's journeys so they don't have quite the speed bumps you and I did.
Yeah, and I love that about you. I've already, for those who haven't heard Janine's show on our mastermind, Friday mastermind, she joined us a few weeks back. You can find that on the same YouTube channel. You'll find this replay. But yeah, that was one of the things. One of my major takeaways was you have that servant leader, that servant heart that I think we have in my network. We have like 1,800 people, and the people that stay, the people that are the most engaged, they all have that kind of mindset or that kind of focus on life. So I already love that about you. So tell me, make me sad, because it's going to be 100 degrees here today and it's going to be hot. What's it like there in Colorado? Just go ahead and share it. I got to hear it.
Okay, well, I hope you're tough enough. No, it's just one of those things that, well, I'm a mile high. All right. So we don't have the oxygen you do down there. Okay. So that for starters. And it is in about 76 degrees Fahrenheit. And we got a nice little rainstorm yesterday. And so there you go. That's the weather report for today. However, one of the things I like to share with people is I very purposefully picked Colorado to live in. I could have lived anywhere, but this is the only place in my entire life that I returned to a city to live. I've never had that in my entire nomadic life. And this was the place I came back to and said, I will live here. I bought a house, and it takes a lot to pry me out of my home office.
Well, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's, again, something that living your ideal day. I retired 16 years ago. I think we talked about this. Um, it's retirement is not doing nothing, because I know you're busy. I know you've got, assistants and processes and 4 kids and trying to get them through college and all that brilliant stuff. Having 5 kids myself, I can relate to that. But making the space both in your life for geographically where you want to be, and making that decision and being conscious about that decision, that's a major decision to make, is saying, this is where I'm going to live my life. I have to admit that through my youth, and I think I shared this with you already, but I actually thought about Colorado as a place I'd like to go. That's where we always went when I was growing up, on vacation. And I love Colorado. So I am a little jealous. And I know that some of my fans, especially my 5 kids and my wife, who will be listening to this, will be jealous when you said it's 76 degrees or something there today, and I know there's not the humidity that we have here and all those things. So, well, that's brilliant. Well, let's do this. We're gonna take a quick break for the audio audience and hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright again in our theme song, It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be right back. And when we come back, I want to hear your story, Janine. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with Warrior versus Zombie and Janine Bolon. All right, we are back. And Janine, I'm getting over my jealousy. So, but tell me, how did you? I love the fact that you're living where you intend to live and doing your best to, as I tell warriors, to live your ideal day where you want to live it. But tell me, how did you get from where you started to where you are today?
Well, first of all, you're always welcome to visit. You and the family are always welcome to visit. Let's start with that. Okay. And that'll help you get over that jealousy gig. When I first started my life, my father was a Navy Seabee. And so we were a military family, and we traveled every 2 to 3 years. We were moving different locations. When I went to college, I was the first person in my family to go to college. So I didn't get a lot of help from the family because they really didn't know what to do. And of course, you got to remember the era, which was you're 18, I'm done with you, almost like the wiping of the hands, like, okay, 18, out of the house you go, we're done. And, figure it out, kid. We're here. We love you. We're here to help you if you ever need a place, a safety net, but don't expect any financial anything from us. So that was what was kind of my background. Also, my mother became terminally ill. And so for 13 years, I watched her slowly die as conditions moved. And so those were kind of the things that were happening to me. So I started off just going to college because I knew I had to get out of southern Missouri. We were 10 miles from the Arkansas border. And if you notice, our dear friend here, David, says Missouri, and I say Missouri, and we're both right, but it's one of those things that if you're below I-70, you say Missouri. If you're above I-70 or above, you say Missouri. It's one of those funny things about the state. But I wanted to get out of southern Missouri, and the only way I knew to do that was to go to college. And I didn't even know what I wanted to be. All I knew was I needed a degree, and I did not want to live the life that I saw my family living. So that was really the only direction I had. I wish I could tell you I had a plan and I just worked my plan. No, I was a leaf on the wind. And what I really did was I looked at what I observed how people lived. And I said, not that, not that, not that, and would take a 180-degree turn into the unknown. So frequently in my life, I was walking into the void, as some people would say. I was walking into the unknown because I had no idea what I wanted to be. I didn't have that kind of target, but I did have excellent, excellent mentors on the things I did not want to be.
That is so brilliant, though. I mean, the thing is, it's very rare. I mean, I run across people that say, okay, I want to be this. I know this. They started from the beginning, right? And they are. But you and what you're doing is, or what you've done is actually more common, because we don't know what the road ahead looks like. It's easy to say, okay, I don't want to be in that ditch or this ditch. Let's go on this. I can see a clear path here, at least far enough to see, and I'm going to keep moving forward, because that's what warriors do, right? We have a vision, but the vision may be just very broad. It just may be, hey, I don't want to live like I'm living right now. It can be something very, very broad. The other thing, by the way, just so you know, is I think I said Missouri only because I was in public, because Missouri is the way I say it. It was a joke, I used to sing in coffee houses and bars, and they would say, Missouri, how do you spell that? And I'd say Missor. It was, so anyway, so I do say it most of the time that way, but I must have made a mistake. So I hope
You're allowed.
I hope you forgive me for that. So that's fascinating. I love that, though. I think that's cool. So tell me a little bit about that journey out of those steps and the zombies that showed up along the way, because I know they're along the road. They always are.
Well, I was running out of money. That was my first zombie. I was running out of money. I only had $1,700, and my mother was dying in a hospital at that time. You didn't have hospice the way you do now, and I had failed my fourth calculus class. It was calculus 4. It's different now, and so I had I'd gotten through all the calculus, and I failed that one because I was running back home, because I never knew what weekend my mother was going to die. She was at that point where sometimes she was awake and could talk to me, sometimes she wasn't. So my last semester there, my last year at college, my dad used to joke, I got redshirted, because it took me 5 years to get my degree, not the typical 4, because I had to constantly retake courses because I was failing. So see, I had this self-concept that I wasn't very intelligent because I could only make C's. I didn't give myself any credit for the fact that I was working 3 jobs and running home to see my mom, who, by the way, it was 8 hours on country roads to get home and see her for a day or two and then have to drive back. So I wasn't thinking in that term. I was just thinking I wasn't smart. So money, and I didn't think I was very smart, but I did have my health. And so I thought, well, I have a strong back. And so I always had a side hack of some kind. I was either selling earthworms on the side. Yeah, I was that kid. I was pedaling a bike around because I chose not to afford a car. I didn't want the expense or the hassle of a car. So I would, if I couldn't hoof it on, as they call Shanks Mare, and if I couldn't ride a bike, then I didn't go there. Or I wrote, because we didn't have a bus system at that time. And so those were my options. And so those were the decisions and zombies I had to get over. And I was very fortunate that I happened to meet my college sweetheart, that we were married for 30 years together. And I remember he loaned me $800, and that's what got me through my college program. That $800 was what I lived on for the semester. And I was spending only $40 a month on food. And I would buy, Dinty Moore stew and potatoes because I wanted to keep my health. And I knew that was necessary. But so that was my first zombie. Was I knew what it was like to smell food and not have access to it. And so I'm very cognizant when I walk through a college campus of who I can spot the kids that are not eating well. And I will always say, hey, come here, let me feed you something. I just can't help it.
That's
And now
the mom as well as the experience, right?
It's just, know who it is. And so those were the first zombies. And so I learned to become very disciplined when it came to my time and to my money, because I saw those as the most precious things that I had.
Mhm. Yeah, and that is so true. I mean, again, that the theme song of this podcast, the time is worth more than the gold. So the time and the money, knowing that that's money you can actually lose and make. I've proven that myself. So I can tell you that. But Bill Gates can't buy yesterday, right? So it's the time is, it's once it's here, it's, so I there's so many things along the journey that will send us that message. So anyway, so tell me a little more. You've got a fascinating story.
Oh, thank
So
you. Yeah.
so you made it through college,
Yes, I did.
and
And it took me a while to get my first job. And I remember my very first job then, but it took me 6 months, and I was actually going to the local um, malls, and I was at the Mrs. Fields cookie shop, like trying to get a job there because I couldn't find one in the academic sector or the scientific sector. Now, at the time, my then husband, he was working at the veterinary school, and he was getting his advanced degrees and getting his residencies because he was a veterinarian. But, he didn't want to be a typical veterinarian. He wanted to be a pathologist. So he was doing his advanced training during that period of time while I was running around trying to make sure that I could keep us fed. And so I was like any job I could possibly get. And I remember I was interviewing for the Mrs. Fields cookies and being at the counter talking to the gentleman saying, I very much want this job. I need this job. And he said, he looked at me and said, I have never seen a resume like this in my life. And he goes, look, he puts his hand on top of my hand. And nowadays that would be not a thing, but this was, 1987. And he puts his hand on top of mine across the table. And he said, Janine, give it 2 more weeks. If you don't have a job in 2 weeks, you come back here and I'll get you a job. And I got a job 6 days later. And I went back to Mrs. Fields Cookie and that little franchisee. I said, I got the job and I'm here to buy a dozen cookies and say thank you. And he gave me those dozen cookies on the house. And he said, somebody said the same thing to me 30 years ago, and it was the best decision I ever made. And so it's interesting how the universe hands a mentee warrior or a veteran warrior to a young warrior, and always is there to help you. So listen to what people are saying around you and take that advice if it resonates. I'm not talking about the negative stuff or the high anxiety stuff. I'm talking when you have somebody that is in a position of power like that, and they actually say to you, look, this is amazing. What you have, what you're offering is incredible. Just give it a bit more time. It's tough, especially when you're staring down at the rent payment and you have no idea where the next paycheck's coming from. You just don't know. It's really difficult, but know that something good is just around the corner. And it has always been that way for me. Every time I got down, I didn't know if I was going to make payroll with my business. I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to pay my people. And I had bills coming in. Something always happened and things turned around for me. But what I remember is the hand that people have gifted me. Like how many times I've been blessed with an older warrior that helped me out, whether it was male or female, didn't matter. They always helped me, gave me a piece of advice, and it was the saving grace for me. So listen to what people are saying around you that really want you to succeed.
Yeah, and that's so powerful, because that's why we need coaches. I mean, that's why coaches need coaches. That's why we need that. And the thing is, you said it early on, and I didn't. It really stuck with me. And you moved down a path, and you knew no, no, okay, this, and you move forward, and you moved into, quote, the unknown, and that is outside your comfort zone, and that's only place that growth occurs, right? So sometimes when you get to those junctures, instead of being anxious, be excited, because that means there's growth around the corner. Just power through. And so it's a powerful message in your story. So tell me, it doesn't feel like we're at the present yet. So tell me where do we go from here?
Well, I was lucky enough to land a job at the University of Florida and be in a research facility. And it was an amazing time and I loved it. And so I'll be happy to fast forward here a little bit. But so what was incredible was I worked in academic laboratories. I worked in highly profitable research institutions. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, which just threw money at the problem. And I did that for 15 years. And at this time, I'd been married for 10 years, and it wasn't that we didn't want children. It's just we didn't think that was in the cards. So rather than go and try to really make a family happen, I just consoled myself with the fact of, okay, so I'm not going to be a mom. And I became a career woman. And I started going into high-tech industry. High-tech at the time was RS-232 cables and Quick Basic, and running robots that cost millions of dollars that you can now buy at Radio Shack or Lego Mindstorm. I look at those robots and I'm like, oh my gosh, I built these things, but I had to do everything. So it was one of those things. I was a very techie kind of person. Absolutely love that stuff, and was always surrounded by, it was a very male dominated world for me. I was frequently the only woman in those environments. But it was okay. I thrived. I understood how to speak Guy. I understood how to speak the language. It was fine. After 15 years, then I got the flu and it wouldn't go away. And so I thought maybe something might be wrong. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, maybe I need to buy one of those pregnancy test kits. I was out in the middle of nowhere. I happened to be in Denver, Colorado. We were out in the middle of nowhere. And I was just like, I was struggling physically to keep up with the hike that we were on, and never had that before in my life. And so checked it out. Sure enough, I was pregnant. So after 10 years of marriage and after 15 years of what was considered by some to be an amazing career, and I thought so, I decided, you know what, enough of this noise. I want to be a stay-at-home mom, and I want to homeschool my kids. And like a plan literally dropped into my head of what the next 20 years of my life was going to look like. And so I went after that with a passion. And at the same time, I also knew that the gray matter would dribble out of my ears if I only was a stay-at-home mom. And I decided to start a company on the side with how to stay debt-free, debt-free living, that sort of thing. So I did that for 20 years and wrote a couple of books and was a college professor along the way, and taught math and science and all that fun stuff. And if you want to move up to modern day, after 30 years of marriage in 2015, my husband and I needed to split. And so I said, well, I know exactly where I want to be. We're currently in Ohio. I want to move to Colorado. So I packed up the 4 kids, moved to Colorado, and said to my husband, I said, okay, if you want to join us, you're welcome to, but this is where I am going. Because he was at a point in his life where he didn't know what he wanted. He didn't know. He was in a really difficult place, and he was going to take us all down with him if something drastic didn't happen. So out of love, I was like, something drastic is going to happen, and I'm going to make sure I protect myself and the children. And so we went to Colorado, and nowadays here we are 7 years later, and he just stopped by this morning and dropped off some things. And he lives exactly, 1 mile from the house where I live, and the kids pop back and forth as adults, and we're very amiable. But something drastic had to happen in that moment. Now I run a broadcasting company, and we do concierge services for corporations and people who just want to show up and do the interviews. And we do everything else for them when it comes to their radio show and their podcasts. So that gets you to modern day.
So that is, and you said the magic word, it's called now. And so that does signal that for the audience that we will be taking a quick break, but I just want to comment on a few things. First of all, I'm very impressed. I'm making those hard decisions, making those hard turns when it comes to life components. It's a hard thing for me. It's a hard thing for everybody to do. And the strength that you exhibited just in saying, okay, this zombie's in front of me or beside me or wherever it was, and you said, yeah, okay, but I've got to keep moving forward. I can't go down this path. And again, kind of like, not that, that's kind of, it's becoming kind of your signature in my brain right now, is not this, that. I like that. I kind of like that whole mindset. I'm going to use that probably sometime down the road, not remember where I got it. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, and I want to talk about why you're doing, what you're doing today, and those kind of things. So let's take a quick break here, a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Janine Bolon and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, I can tell there's so much more warrior journey that we could learn from here, Janine. I'm so grateful that you're sharing it with me. I've learned a lot already. So tell me, why are you doing? You started to mention it with there, but why are you doing what you're doing today? How did that all come about? And if anything were possible, what kind of impact do you want to have?
So, for starters, in 2015, when I had to take that hard right turn and decide to dissolve the marriage after 30 years, I knew that I had to set some pretty tight goals for myself. And I had a vision board and I went after that vision. And I can tell you, here I am 7 years later, and I have accomplished all the things that I set on that board in 2015. I've written a book a year. I ran an online university. I had 488 students in my 87 different courses over time. And it was just one of those things where I literally accomplished everything. Every year I would sit down and create the next phase of the development that I needed for myself and my children. And it was amazing to watch the relationships around me as they morphed and changed. And anyway, I accomplished everything I set out to do. Now, how did I end up with where I am right now today? Well, it's because of my students. My students were saying, Janine, when are you going to do this? Janine, when are you going to do that? And so I would go off and I would do it because they needed it. It was either another course or they needed me to write a book. So literally, I sit here now as a author of 11 books. I'm working on book number 12. And it's all because my students were pushing me. They wanted the information in accessible ways for them. And so I would do printed books. And then they'd say, okay, can you do audiobooks? And hey, what about a podcast program? These are the questions I want you to answer for me on this podcast program. Well, I didn't know anything about podcasting. So, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. Mm-hmm. And then they were like, so when are you going to have a membership website? And so, I now have like 11 different websites that my company and I monitor and run. And so there's a lot that's going on in my world, but it was all created because of my students. They asked and I would deliver it to them. So when it comes to what kind of impact, that was never in my brain. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I have no clue what kind of impact. This idea of influencers and people actively engaging and being that was before my time. That mm-hmm. was not a thing that was even remotely a consideration. I never desired to be an Oprah. I'm going to use old school stuff, but I never desired to be an Oprah Winfrey or a Madonna or these amazing icons that have radically shifted, a Steve Jobs or, any of those people. And I just, Elon Musk is somebody who I'm like, go, go, go. Do I like everything the guy does? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be a human being on this planet if I thought he was awesome in every single way. However, I do see the genius, and I've seen it in my own students. It's that crazy out of the box thinking that drives the next generation forward. And anything I can do, if it were to be impactful, if there's anything I can do to help an Elon Musk at age 18 to 21, I want to be there and be a veteran warrior that says, you can do this. You have this crazy idea for setting up your own type of electric car. Let's see what we can do to make that happen.
So I love that, because that is, I think it's really a mistake when you hit on several things there, which I think are brilliant. One is that I think the masses look at individuals that have risen to that kind of celebrity or that kind of status, and they say, okay, somehow they're either somebody to be hated or somebody to be loved. And the reality of it is they're just like you and me. They have an idea, somebody encouraged them, they started moving forward with it, and they didn't give up. And that's a lot of what. And so the brilliance is in everybody. And I so love my two focuses are people who are in transition from, that corporate world that I came out of, and then looking to take it to the next level or do something, chapter 2, whatever you want to call it. but then also the millennials, because I have 5 millennial children too. I mean, kind of like you do, right? So we have an affinity to that generation, and we want that generation, as you said earlier, to be better off than we were, and learn from the things and be more encouraged than we were, because those are the things, the people that encouraged me along the way, just like you, are the ones that can take credit for anything that I've done, because I might have given up. So, so the impact that you're having is kind of the same way. It's like my life purpose is to change the world one dream at a time. I'm always looking for people who have a dream. And what is the impact there? It's going to change the world. The thing is, think about it. If you find the one, or find an Elon Musk, or find anybody like that, right? I mean, that person, through you, you can begin to influence and change the world. That's what influence really is, by the way. It's not how many followers you have on these platforms. I've got hundreds of thousands of followers on various sundry of platforms, and I don't know who I'm influencing. I don't make a point to do that. Anyway, sorry, that was my little bit of
Well,
rant
let's
there.
no, that's quite all right. Let's talk about influencers for a moment. I
Mhm.
do see them doing great work. I have been a part of some communities that had amazing YouTubers that
Mhm.
had grown to huge, like millions of views and millions of subscribers. And I have watched them turn the tide on the mindset, societally speaking, of this isn't right. I am not going to support this. I'm shutting down my channel. I've seen people walk away from a lot of the fame and fortune and end up being a positive force. And of course, they don't make the news, right? Those aren't the ones that make the news. It's the ones that are behaving badly. So I
Mhm.
always encourage young people, and I don't care, young people can be, anybody under the age of 99, as far as I'm concerned. But, I encourage people, look at the folks who aren't making a lot of noise, who are just steadily and consistently producing content, the people who inspire you consistently, because every Friday at noon, a video is going up, and that's going to be something that's going to help you. And then
Mhm.
on the days when they're off their game and it didn't help you, instead of being a troll, which most people aren't, a 90% of people are not, give them, uplift them. One of the things that I've seen is everybody talks about how horrible YouTube is. Well, the communities I hang out are incredibly supportive. I mean, I've had YouTubers that almost start crying on camera because they're like, thank you guys. I was having a rough day. I didn't think I was going to be able to keep going. And you inspired me, and you guys' comments were great, and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So, there are amazing communities there. The thing is, if you can't find a community that you resonate with, would you please build it? That's what I share with people. It's like, build that community, because you're not finding what you need. Ergo, there's a whole group of people, into the tune of tens of thousands, who are also not finding what they need. And if you would start that community, then you would attract those people, and you guys would be able to solve a small piece of that big puzzle we call life.
And I so love that. So, I mean, frankly, our alignment just continues to reveal itself to be even stronger, because aside from the finding the dream and changing the world, the other part of my is building community. I mean, that's why I have the Richardson Plano Networkers. That's why I'm one of the early adopters of Be Connected. It's really to take that force of creativity, because life is a team sport, right? Life is us working together. So we're learning, we're on the same team, hopefully, here. Well, let's do this. I want to take a quick break and get into what I call the land the plane segment, which is where if we take away anything from this podcast, and if there's something that I missed, you can bring it in if we haven't already talked about it. What should we take away? And I've found a myriad of warrior nuggets already. And then I also want the audience to know how to stay in touch with you. So let's take a quick break, hear a little more Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Janine Bolon and Warrior versus Zombie. Wow, I've got so many There's so many things we could talk about. We may have to do another episode just because, I know I'm going to be on your show, by the way. So I don't know what we're going to talk about there, but you get to decide that. It's your show. But we'll have fun. And by the way, anybody that wants more of Janine, again, go back to the mastermind that we did a couple of weeks back on a Friday, and you'll find it on our YouTube channel if you're looking for it. But anyway, so if we take away anything from this discussion, this podcast, your story, what would you want to make sure, Janine, that we take away?
Well, you can tell I'm an old college professor because I immediately have 4 points. Okay, 4 points. Point number one, get control of your calendar. Your time is your most precious resource. It's not your money, it's your time. And you've already talked about this, David, and I think that's fabulous. But you want to do time blocking or sit down with yourself one day a week. And what you're going to do for 30 minutes, and I know this is old school stuff, where you sit down, you look over your week, and you decide what it is you want to do, and then pick 3 things that you want to do in that week that will move you closer to your goal. Well, what's your goal? Well, look at your vision board. Oh, what? You don't have a vision board? Make one. How else are you going to take that dream and make it happen if you don't have a vision board? And I've had some millennials go, oh my God, if I hear about a vision board, they don't work for me. I go, how do you know? They're like, well, I've made them, but nothing happens. I'm like, do you look at them once a week? Are you planning your life around that dream? And it's amazing how many people I end up coaching just on that one aspect. They pay me $5,000 to help them manifest their dream. Okay. So take this advice for free. You don't have to pay $5,000. Just make a vision board and then sit down once a week for 15 to 20 minutes and ask yourself the primary questions. Am I moving forward toward this dream? What can I do over the course of this week? What can I research? What kind of baby step can I take toward this dream? And then you do that consistently for 52 weeks out of the year. I guarantee you will move toward your purpose or toward your dream. So that's time. That's item number one. Item number two, get control of your money. If you're in debt, make it your primary goal to get out of debt. I don't care what you have to do, but get out of debt, no matter what that is. I do not count the fact that if you have money that you owe on a home or on your car. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that credit card debt, medical bills, love loans, student debt, any of that. Get that paid down because you're not able to truly live free. And I want you to be financially free. And so that's the second item. And I have a lot of free stuff on my website, financialfirstresponse.com. And it's all free. I don't even ask you for your email. It's all available. Just sign up and get yourself onto those programs totally free of charge. It's my philanthropic arm of my business. So I don't care where you go or what you're doing with that, but get yourself debt free. Okay. So that's to get charge of your money. Number 3, your knowledge. You want to always be increasing your knowledge base because it makes you more and more valuable. So what are you interested in? Here I am at age 58, and I'm learning to play the piano. I've been wanting to learn to play the piano since I was 8, but we moved. We could not cart a piano. Now, when the technology came out for keyboards, they were into the tune of thousands of dollars. I said, when it finally gets below $300, I'll buy one. Guess what? I bought one last year because it finally hit my mark, and I have now learning how to play. I can whip out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for you faster than anybody. I'm at the kindergarten level, but I'm constantly increasing my knowledge base. Why? Because these are skills that bring me joy. And if you're not having a fun, happy life, then figure out what it is you need to go learn so that you can put yourself in a place of joy. Last is your sanity. Number 4, what activities keep you feeling vibrant and enthusiastic? And if you don't know what those are, then go out and start trying to figure that out. Give yourself 4 hours a week on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a Monday, whatever day you have off, and go out there and try to figure out what is it that I can do that brings me a feeling of enthusiasm and vibrancy. You need to do more of that in order to have a highly engaging life. So those are the 4 takeaways from today. Get control of your time, get control of your money, figure out your skill sets and keep increasing your knowledge base, and make sure you stay sane and live a vibrant and enthusiastic life by doing the things that bring you joy.
Wow. Great summary. I can tell you are a teacher. That's beautiful. And I love it. Time. I'm glad you got that first. And then
Dun, dun, dun.
the money, I been there. Actually did Dave Ramsey's thing for hundreds of
Financial
people.
Peace University. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
his stuff,
I
baby
did
steps.
FP.
Awesome. Yep.
I taught that, or didn't teach it, but facilitated that for through my church for hundreds of people over the years. And it's my oldest daughter is a product of that, because she took the program, her and her husband were military, and applied that, and they're better off probably than I was, for sure, than I was at their age, but probably now even. So that's beautiful. And then the other things, just continuing to grow your, your experiences, the things that bring you joy, and visiting those at least once a week. I love that idea as well. So how do we stay in touch with you? Obviously, we're on the Be Connected platform, so people can find you here. They can, Janine Bolon, your name is there, and I'm sure we can find you. But how else do we stay? I said you mentioned a number of websites. I don't know that we want to hear all of those, but tell us what's the best way we can stay in touch.
Well, I think the best way is you mentioned another episode. So you're going to be on my show, and then I'm going to be back on yours at some point. So we'll stay in touch that way. But
Mm-hmm.
if you do want to really dig around, I have lightning coaching sessions that I offer people for only $75. If you just want to kind of get a taste of things or see what I can do to help you out. And if you go to my what we call the mothership of my companies, it's called the8gates.com, and it's THE, the number 8, and then Gates, GATES.com. You can also, LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn, look me up. I'm one of the only Janine Bolons there. And then a member of my team will set up an appointment with you free of charge, where for 15, 20 minutes we can chat. So it's up to you how you want to do that. It's very easy, but the 8 Gates is probably the fastest way.
Well, I love easy, and the 8gates .com is easy enough to find, so that's beautiful. And I love the fact that you have some philanthropic things there. You have low barrier to entry. People don't have to go invest $1 million to get a little bit of your time, and I love that. So all right, well, this has been brilliant, and there's so much more. I've got thinking of all these things that I would like to talk to you about, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to do that in the future. So, but Janine, thank you for serving our audience. I so loved our time together.
It was a pleasure to be here, and I really recommend to folks, don't just listen, integrate, and then implement.
Amen. Okay, well, so all the warriors listening here, come back next Thursday for another episode. But whatever you've picked up today, do what Janine says, do what I say, and put it into practice, because it's a journey every day. It's not a destination. You're not waiting to do something, but get in motion and take what you've learned today and put it into action. So with that, we'll hear the final outro of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie.